Well, if you have a teenager or if you have been a teenager, you know that the process of becoming an adult can be a scary and painful experience. The organization Young Life helps to walk kids through that process, and 4 of its leaders are here to tell us about it. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, 3 of you are volunteer leaders. That's Angela, Ben, and Melinda. And David, you are the vice president of Young Life.
Yes, I am.
Just quickly, tell us what is Young Life?
Young Life's an outreach organization, Christian organization founded in 1941 in Gainesville, Texas. An arm of the church, really aiming to reach kids who are not part of a church, have no Christian background.
Now I'm looking at the 4 of you. You full-time, you reach out to young people, and so I figure you're the experts. So I want you to tell me the secret to reaching young people's hearts. Just, something light to start off with.
Yeah, well, I definitely think it's just about, just knowing the individual and who that student or teenager is, and just really getting to know them on a personal level, right? And I think the best way to reach out to them is just kind of share a part of you, and hopefully they'll take that or accept it and just go with it, right? And you can kind of just have fun outside of school or whatever it is that you're doing.
I think of one of the misnomers that we think. When I was in my 20s, I got asked to be involved in youth ministry, and I was like, I can't do that. Like, I'm not cool enough. I don't listen to their music. I don't wear their clothes. I thought that I had to meet them exactly their level. Do you find that to be true? I'll ask you.
Well, these guys are really cool. So
they are. I know. That's not why I asked you.
Kids are looking for authenticity more than they're looking for image. And I think there's lots around that's image-based. That's what they see all the time. So all of a sudden to have a young adult come into their life who wants to be their friend, who's authentic, who's transparent, buys them Starbucks and junk food, oh yeah, absolutely, earns the right to be heard.
And you've been doing this for a little while, so do you find that you have to be different in every generation, or is it the same thing that works all the time?
Well, I lost touch with the music a long time ago, but one thing doesn't change is kids want to belong, and they want to fit in, and want to know that they're loved, and I think that's timeless for humans.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Now, Angela, you actually came to know faith through Young Life. Tell me a little bit about that journey and why you wanted to be part of it.
Yeah. Well, I grew up in a normal family, 2 parents, a brother, the typical 1 boy, 1 girl. And so I did go to church growing up, but it wasn't really anything that I desired for myself. I went because I had to, because I was a child that was told I had to go. And so Young Life came along at a point in my life where I felt like I was really searching for something, and those feelings of am I welcomed? Do I belong? And Young Life, I got invited to go to a Young Life club, and as soon as I showed up there, I instantly felt loved and welcomed, and I had 20 instant friends that were asking me to hang out the next week. And so that's why I continued to go back. And so I can look back now and see that that was God's way of showing me the love that He had for me, even though I wasn't seeing it at that point as God's love for me. And so a couple years later, I accepted Christ when I was in university, and which is another great thing, is that Young Life pursued me throughout university. And so I got baptized, and I became a volunteer leader, and now I'm on staff. So it's been a great journey.
I know there's people watching who, haven't made a decision to give their lives to God. And when you say that you did that, it's like, you joined a religion, you joined a movement because they were nice to you. Tell me what that's like. What does that feel like to go from where you were to really just give your life to God? What changed inside of you?
I think for me, it wasn't so much Young Life, other than God used Young Life and the people around me who were Christians leading a life of true faith, that I just got this message that God has a bigger plan for your life, and God has hope and love for you. And so for me, it was these 2 clear paths of I could go down this path and be uncertain and unsure and insecure, or I could go down the path that follows Jesus and be confident and loved and have a hope even when life could be crumbling around me, that I had that hope in God. So that for me was kind of the clincher. Not that it was Young Life that brought that into my life, but God definitely used that organization to speak to my heart.
That's awesome. And Ben, you were actually a Christian when you joined Young. Tell me how you joined. There's some strange experience about someone in a supermarket. What's going on?
Well, it is an interesting story because it's completely just out of the ordinary. But I was in the grocery store, and I ran into a student that I taught when I was on my teacher's college practicum. And so it was just like, hey, like, how's it going? Good to see you again. And this was a year later. And so we just started talking for a bit. And then his mom was there too. And so I just introduced myself to his mother, and then we just kept talking. And eventually she brought up this organization called Young Life. And I had no idea what this was about. But she's just like, you should really get involved with Young Life, or you should just kind of check this out. And then I was like, sure, why not? I mean, I might as well see what it's all about.
That's what he's told.
Yeah. And so I just gave her my email and contact information. And then, like a week later, I was in contact with one of the area directors in Oakville. And then one thing led to another. And now I'm helping out with the Oakville Club. So
That's awesome. And you've been doing this for how long?
2 years.
So what have you seen? Because you're volunteering your time. So, that's a big gift in this busy world. Tell me, is it rewarding? Are you seeing lives change?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting for me because I get to see it on the inside of the school as well. Just being a teacher in the Oakville area, you get to see how that changes the lives for some of the students. And one thing that is definitely noticeable is just that students are kind of create this own community within their school. And it's not based off of their, maybe their social class or just how they're identified as a student at that school. It's more so like, we recognize these individual differences that we have, but we still come together and we get along and we accept one another. And it's just cool to see even that relationship happening between different grade levels too. Like a grade 9 is hanging out with a grade 11. And so it definitely creates a little community, I would say, within the school itself.
And Melinda, you have a different experience of Young Life because they basically discipled you, which, kind of mentored you in your Christian walk all through high school and university, right?
Yeah, so I was blessed to grow up in a Christian home and have faith as part of my life through awesome parents. But as for, I think, every Christian kid growing up, there's always this point where you decide to make that faith your own or you decide not to. And Young Life was a huge part for me of realizing this is what a life of following Jesus looks like, and it looks like sharing Jesus with the people in your life, and that was huge for me, and just having people in my life who modeled that and not just told me how to share Christ with people and then went on living their own lives, but just modeled that those godly lives and kind of showed me what this life of following Christ is like.
I had the same experience myself as a young person. I really know there's a time that you own it, and it's so great that you had an organization to walk you through that. As we're looking at this generation, you guys all deal with it, and I don't know why. Maybe the last few generations, you always hear people try to quantify them. They're all like this, they're all like that. One of the words I hear about this generation is entitlement, and I know lots of really great young people. So I don't know if that's you can just generalize like that. Is that true? And can we actually put people in boxes like that? Do you guys find?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think that. Teens these days, they have a lot going on just in itself, and they're definitely busy people, whether it's with academics or extracurriculars or just trying to fit in with their social groups. I think that they just have a lot going on, so I feel like sometimes they can be a little bit anxious, or they can feel overwhelmed at times, and that definitely will have kind of an impact on them too. But in terms of do they have entitlement? I don't think so. I don't think that they have an exact entitlement to what it is that's going on. Yeah.
I feel like it's not so much entitlement, but it's teenagers these days have a lot of pressure, and they're kind of told this is what you need to achieve. This is where you need to be. When you're done high school, you need to go to university because that is what will make you complete and whole and successful. And so we have teenagers in high schools now who have so much pressure on them and so much stress because they're trying to impress their teachers, they're trying to impress their friends and their parents. It's just a lot of pressure on them to succeed. And we have kids now who are in 4 or 5 different extracurriculars. They're taking the 3 maths and the 3 sciences in one term. And so it's just, they have a lot of pressure on them. And I think it might come across as entitlement, but a lot of the teenagers are just stressed and they don't share it. They feel like they have to take it on their own shoulders. And so, I feel like they're misunderstood.
That's so insightful and wise. And I think misunderstood could be over every teenage generation from the beginning of time, pretty much, right? They're so hard to understand. What are some of the issues they're facing? Because I feel like there's the pressure, but also like there's never been so many temptations and just so much change in society. Do you guys see that?
You know, the Toronto Star did a major census in 2011 of 103,000 middle school and high school kids. And one of the number one issues facing kids was anxiety. So when you say, what are kids facing? We've all faced anxiety, so I don't know if that's new, but the fact that it's so prevalent amidst all the stuff that they have, that to us is alarming.
Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, I can kind of speak to that because I was personally affected by mental illness as a teenager, as well as I work with youth who are currently experiencing some of that anxiety that Dave talked about in a nursing context. And I feel like every kid who has, whether it's an anxiety disorder or struggling with depression, every kid feels like I'm the only one who's struggling, and no one really understands how like that I'm the only one having a hard time. And so that's why I think these conversations are super important. I was really struck by that this weekend as we took our kids on a Young Life winter road trip, and we got the opportunity to have cabin time conversations where we just talked about things that are hard in our lives and things that are awesome in our lives. And because I just think that creating a safe and supportive environment for youth to share what is awesome and what is hard is so important in terms of showing them how to be vulnerable with each other to build a community. And also it's just an awesome opportunity for us to show Christ in those conversations.
Yeah, it's so important that you guys are there. And it's funny how what you guys answer, because you kind of expect people to say, well, kids are cutting and drugs are so prevalent and sex, is like more pressure for that than ever before. But you guys are talking actually about their heart and anxiety and pressure in school and identity. And I guess those are true of every generation. And you find that to be more significant.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
All the rest comes out of that in a way, doesn't it?
Yeah, because it's definitely like, I feel like everyone wants to be an individual in itself, right? You want to have some sort of unique identity that makes you stand out from other people, but at the same time, you want to feel part of a community, right? So these kids are trying to balance, okay, I need to feel accepted with this social group, but at the same time, I want to be unique in my own way. And I think that's why Young Life is so important, because it recognizes, okay, this student or this individual is awesome just in itself, who they are. Yeah. And we can introduce them to this other group of people that, are also feel empowered just by themselves. And then they can see that, just being with these other people that have kind of a good spirit or just going through the same kind of anxiety or pressures that they're dealing with.
We have only a minute left, but just as people of faith, I know lots of people have young people in their lives as children, or like I have a nephew that's 16. What would be your best piece of advice quickly, just a few of you, how you could help that person to break through, to really speak into those issues? Is it just loving on them?
Yeah, showing up, being consistent. That kids are so used to having people come in and out of their life. And the thing I've always appreciated about Young Life is the leaders show up, regardless of whether the kid believes this or not.
So it's just loving them no matter. Anyone else?
Just come alongside them and live their life with them and show up in the little moments, because that's when awesome things happen.
Yeah. And laugh. I think it's important just to have fun, right? You got to just make life entertaining too.
Having a car doesn't help. I mean, it doesn't hurt. Driving around
Having a
places.
car, yeah.
And being yourself, that they get to see a piece of our life, that we have faults and we have failures and we have embarrassing stories that we're willing to share with them for a good laugh. So
We've said that Young Life is an organization, we take Jesus Christ very seriously, but we don't take ourselves very seriously. And that, to a teenager, helps a lot.
I love that. People sometimes think that Christians are just so serious and boring, and you guys are just so much fun and full of life. And thank you for what you're doing, because, we need to be there. I remember hearing a gang leader said, what's the difference between me and you? I'm there. I'm there when he comes home from school. I'm there when he goes to school. I'm there, when he goes to bed. Like, I'm there. And that's kind of how he influenced them, And that's how you influence the next generation. So thank you guys for showing up.
Yeah.
You're awesome.
thanks, Sharon.
Great. Thanks for having us.